Managing a team of investigators just got easier with TrackOps, the all-in-one case management software. Are you ready to enhance case flows and drive efficiency? TrackOps offers powerful management and coordination tools to streamline workflows and communication, all designed to keep your team synchronized and focused on the task at hand. With TrackOps, you can easily distribute workloads, track individual performance, and ensure deadlines are met. Plus, the TrackOps mobile app allows investigators to access case activities on the go. And the TrackOps video app allows for simple and consistent timestamping, all included at no extra cost. Start streamlining your investigation process today. Visit trackops.com for a free 15-day trial and experience the power of efficient team management. TrackOps, empowering teams, simplifying management. The Campbell Group has teamed up with PI Perspectives to offer listeners top-notch, affordable insurance solutions. Private investigators can get insurance for their business for as low as $305 per year. Apply now at piperspectivesinsurance.com and receive a quote back within 24 hours. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthew.s@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump into this week's episode. We are back with a new show this week. Today we welcome California PI and international investigator Christina Duran. Christina has made a career doing criminal defense investigations, and she has also worked internationally doing human trafficking investigations. Today she's on the program to discuss some changes in the law in California and how it's affecting criminal defense investigations. It's a great show, so let's jump right in and welcome Christina and your host, private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we got a really interesting show, and I'm very excited to have a friend of mine on the show. Someone we've been talking about it for a while. We had a couple of schedules and conflicts and on both ends, and we're finally able to get on here and get a good show out. I'm really excited by the topic today. I want to welcome Christina Duran to the show. Christina, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So you're a PI who's California and international. You do a little bit of both. So why don't you tell people a little bit about your background, what you do?
I do. So I'm a specialist in human trafficking. I'm a search and recovery agent, and I actually own a firm in the Dominican Republic where we do search and recovery. I have a criminal defense firm in California called Matrix Investigation, where I am a court-appointed investigator appointed by both federal and superior courts in California.
Awesome. How long have you been doing that for?
My whole entire life,
27
years
ages.
now.
I don't want to know how old you are, just how long you've been doing it.
Well, I'm a little bit older than 27, but I've been doing it right. When I was in college, one of my criminal justice professors was a DEA agent, and he asked me what I was doing over the summer and asked if I wanted to do a trip to Miami. I don't want to really date myself, but anybody can probably figure, we're all PIs, so you can figure out my age. But so ask what I was doing.
There. As long as those guys weren't there, I think you're okay.
So he just asked, what I was doing over the summer, asked if I wanted to do any sort of roping. Went out to Miami. It was supposed to be like a 3-week, turned into 9 months, had the time of my life, and really just kind of got a feel for it. And then after that, started working cases for the government, packaging cases for Attorney General's office. Never really felt like my type of gig, because there's the truth, and then he said, she said, and I didn't really understand why we were gung-ho going after people that had only been in the country for a couple months, didn't really know our laws. So one of the in-house counsels said, hey, I have this case where our 19-year-old client's being charged, falsely accused, of course, of rape. We've been
Right.
trying to talk to this lady from Guatemala. You speak Spanish. No one can get a hold of her. How much you charge? And of course, me, imposter syndrome, like, oh yeah, I don't know. I can't charge. Go
I'll do it
out
for
there and
free. All right.
like, it's, so go out there, go to Fontana and talk to her. And she says, wait, what? In Espanol, she says, he's being charged with rape still. Well, what's going on with my papers? If I tell the truth, will I still get my papers?
Right.
I said, well, shoot, can I record this conversation? She says, yes. And I do that. District attorney says, well, let's let the community decide. And the community decide our client was not guilty. So after that,
Wow.
I thought, well, shoot, maybe I should charge, right? I think I got
Right.
paid in PF or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it good orange chicken or orange beef? What'd you
It
get?
was lettuce wrap, right? It was okay,
No
lettuce wrap.
carbs.
So
Sorry. No
right, no
carbs.
carbs, right? So yeah, I mean, after that, I got a little, it was a lot of mentors and a lot of people in this industry. One of my really good friends who really just gave me the confidence and said, like, Christina, look, you've got your PI license. I had to hurry up and get my PI license back then too, because I was going to like testify
Right.
in June, and it's like, here it is, April. And I'm like, whoa.
Right.
So go down, take the test,
California is tough too. It's tough to get your license there. It's a lot of
It's tough
hoops.
to get your license in
Yeah.
California. You got to do
Yeah.
thank goodness I had the background. Thank goodness I had the qualifying hours. Thank goodness I worked for the government. Thank goodness I had done what I had done. Like I had done everything leading up to that. But the test was no joke. It wasn't like you could just walk in there and be like, oh, I know everything,
You
because you
kind of have
don't.
to do the job to pass the test. Like if you haven't done it before, it's very difficult to pass.
And you have to study because they ask you
Yeah.
questions like, how many counties are in
Yeah.
California,
Yeah. I remember when I took the test in New York, I was like, wow, my college education actually meant something. Like there's questions on this test that like I learned in college. Um,
Yeah.
and going back to what you said about, having a professor that's a DEA agent and all that, it's few and far between for people actually to do what they went to school for. But you
Yeah.
find that a lot in our industry, that
Yeah.
most of the people that are in it studied it in school. And then there were people who studied it in school that end up doing it other stuff. But it's really cool, I think, in my opinion, that you do something for a living that you actually paid your education for. Like this is what
Well,
I paid for.
I was supposed to be a lawyer. I was gonna go. I was actually, Bill Cosby gave me a big old scholarship to go to school. I was part of like the Coming Together Foundation, and in fact, I
Yeah.
tried to work with Gates. I was like, "Hey, Bill," contacting his lawyer, never heard from him.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a whole separate topic.
That's
But
another show.
it's another show.
We'll have you
But
back.
but I really thought, okay, one of the things with doing this, if you do it right and if you have the business mindset, you can definitely have a livelihood in terms of any sort of lawyer. So, and this is, I mean, it's nice to dress up. It's nice to go to the trials. It's nice, that kind of stuff. But there's nothing more exciting and thrilling than the hunt.
Yeah,
The
I'm
connection.
100% with you. So I
Yeah.
have a similar story. So, I went to criminal justice and did that whole route. And I ended up working for a lawyer in-house. And at one point he was like, wow, you're really good at this stuff. Like you're really like, you should be a lawyer. This is what I'm going to do. You go to law school. I'll pay you a salary, but don't come and work for me. Just go do the school thing. And when you graduate, come work for me. I was like, wow, that's very generous of you. That's pretty amazing. And I started that procedure going through, taking the LSAT, getting out applications. I think it was going to go to Pace College in New York or Pace Law School. And like I had it all lined up to go. And then one day I'm in the courthouse filing paperwork and I have this, like, I don't want to do this. And I don't want to do this, man. I don't want to sit here and have to file papers, and I don't want to do all this motion practice and draft bill particulars and interrogatories and all the other stuff, depositions. I could care less about that. What I really love doing, why did it happen?
Yeah.
Who's behind it? Who's responsible? Like that's the stuff that I was like, I want to do that. And it was just a natural progression of, I'm your in-house investigator. What I'm doing for you, Mr. Lawyer, I can do for many. And that was the genesis of me starting my business and writing a business plan and doing all that. So yeah, same boat. No lawyer for
And
me.
yeah, being
You
part of
know?
the defense team. I mean,
Yeah.
you're still part of the team.
Yeah.
You're gathering on the defense side because that's what I do. And it's
Mhm.
interesting. Took my sister on a kind of like a Lincoln lawyer type of ride along where she did a lot of the
Yes.
driving, and she looked at me and she said, wait a minute, you work for the bad guys? I said, wait, no, don't call my
Who's
client bad
McConaughey?
guys. She's like,
Yes.
wait a minute. But nonetheless, working on the defense side, we're such an integral part. They can't. When I worked for, I had a really cush job at a public defender's office for a very short period. I thought, oh God, I can't do this because the young attorneys, they don't really know how to utilize
Yeah.
us.
Super
So
frustrating.
Oh, yeah. And me speaking Spanish, I'm here on nothing but like the 288s, which translates into a penal code, lewd acts. And I just thought, I can't do this. I'm not going to sit here and translate this for you. Like, I need to be out. I need to do this. And then, of course, working for the county, you're under the constrictions of very, like, it's a impoverished type of, there's a
Yeah.
cap on your income, and I can't have that.
The budget. Yeah. It's frustrating, right? How do you spend that budget to make sure that you're fairly representing somebody as well? Like that's a challenge, right?
Right.
Is this
Right. And,
person
and the consumer doesn't, right. The public defender's budget versus the district attorney's budget,
yeah.
right? Like they just don't, they're not, it's not comparable.
Is there really due process? Wow, that's another show.
That's a whole other topic, right? There's a
Yeah.
whole, like, we just have this pendulum, the Lady Justice, right? Like that's just, I can't even tell you how many orders that, just get denied. It's like, no, that's not needed. That's not needed.
Crazy. That's
Right.
crazy. So one of the things we were talking about offline, and I think ties in with what we're talking about here, is something again similar to something I had the opportunity to go to and do. You had mentioned about teaching the Bar Association in California, like you've been invited to do some continuing education and speaking, and I think that's amazing. I mean, really being able to go back and teach people. So for me, same thing, right? New York State Trial Lawyers Association, come in and do a continuing education teaching. But wait a second, these are all the guys I used to put up on a pedestal, and people I was like, oh, this is crazy. People I can't be in the room with them. I'm now teaching them, and now a lot of them are my friends now too, which is crazy, right?
Right. And I think too, I've always, and words are powerful. You got to be really careful about what you say, because I've always told myself, oh, I'm a horrible teacher. Like I'm a horrible teacher.
Yeah.
But I'm not. Like I'm a great mentor. I sincerely care. So
Right.
when I was asked to, do some sort of curriculum, with my experience working in search and recovery, being an agent, realizing, okay, I can't fix this problem because, of course, as investigators, we're like these innate like fixers, right? Like you give us a problem, you give us a ball of yarn, you give us a Rubik's cube, we're gonna solve it, we're gonna fix it.
Yeah. Yep.
So with the human trafficking, I thought, oh yeah, there's no fixing. So I started a nonprofit and did community development and started teaching, implementing things, providing alternatives. Like there's other things. So like with that being said, with being asked, like these curriculums in California, the laws are just so obscured, and we've got these issues with people being wrongfully overly charged, where the case where this 19-year-old kid and his girlfriend are trying to kind of figure out how to get home from Vegas, and 19, no frontal lobe, like we're not
Things. Yeah.
we're not smart kids. And like,
Yeah.
okay, let's put you on the back page, babe, get $30. And then all of a sudden they fall into a sting operation, a trap, and they get a human trafficking charge.
Yeah.
And that's a heavy charge out here in California. We're going to ruin a 19-year-old's life. We're going to ruin a 19-year-old's life. So providing education, providing, showing these defense attorneys, racial justice information, which a lot of these wonderful attorneys have just kind of like calculated, and they're working on these programs out here. The laws are changing out here in California. Yeah. We're really able to humanize people. We do a lot of mitigation. Like this is where it's at.
Yeah, we're going to jump into all that when we come back from a break, because I think it's super interesting. But yeah, like you look at like the Southern Poverty Law Center and stuff like that. You have these advocates that are making sure that things are being done correctly, and humanizing things that need to be humanized. I do a lot of CVA cases, the Children's Victim Act, and on that end, I'm working for lawyers that are representing people that have been abused, right?
Yeah.
And it's always there's shock value to that. Like, oh my God, this is disgusting. This is crazy, right? But you almost got to like remove yourself from that and really just try and dig in with the perspective of like, I got to be able to prove this, right? I got to speak to people. I got to be able to figure out what happened. I got to make sure that the story is legit to the extent that it happened the way that it's being told now. And I don't know if you've come across this in California, but in New York, when we had a statue that was opened back up, and now you're free to make a claim, and people are remembering abuses that happened 25, 30 years ago. Are they really remembering it the way it happened? Or is there more to the story here or less to the story? And we got to kind of figure out what's a claim and what's not a claim. And, you always want to believe that you're going to be able to find the right answer, and you'll interview people and you'll figure it out, and you'll be able to solve that trauma of whatever this person went through. But you also need to substantiate it. And if you can't substantiate it, there's no gunpowder to go after whoever it is you're going after to do it. So it's a very interesting concept to go and do that investigative type work.
Yeah, one of the things out here, in fact, tomorrow it's similar to what you do. We have what's called Star Court out here in Los Angeles. So tomorrow I'll be at Star Court. I'm the investigator for the children that in the commission of being trafficked. So say, for instance, like this case, we have a foster child that has been exploited. She's absolutely been trafficked. And in commission of that, she committed a crime.
Wow.
So the wonderful thing about that is they appoint someone like myself as her investigator. And part of my job is to show that exploitation, right? To show
Right.
that she too is in turn a victim, because, a lot of times these people will, like, say, for instance, they'll use these girls to commit while they're exploiting them in the human trafficking manner. Well, let's go rob Verizon. Let's go carjack.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I'm sure it happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And this girl's 15. So she's not even 15-year-olds in every state have no consent.
Sure.
So you can't consent, one, to be exploited, and you can't consent to commit crimes.
Sure.
So that's the beautiful thing out here. So I'm on the Star Court panel out here in Los Angeles. You can just, and there I am. So that has been one of the most purpose-driven responsibilities that I have. And I got to tell you, I don't know what you do, Matt, in terms of like to self-care, self-reflect, because this is a lot of responsibility.
Oh yeah, it's heavy, especially as a parent, to young children, it's heavy. And some of the investigators that work with me, they're from the special victims unit in the city. So, and I've had conversation with that. Like, are you okay, buddy? Like, is everything good?
Right.
Like it's heavy, and it really, it's almost like people that serve overseas, and do what they do over there. Like you need to have that decompression and the ability to kind of separate and understand that you're trying to help people too, like that's kind of a rationalization for it. That's why I like doing plaintiff work, because it helps me recognize
because the empathy is unrealistically real. Like the empathy is just so you're and I am a mother, and my children are older, and they're grown. And, one of my daughter, she's an ABA therapist, and she also is in social work. So I rely heavily on her on just like
Sure.
the human aspect. And she's great. And my other daughter's at the University of Oregon, and she's my IT, and she does a lot for me. And she's majoring in journalism. So she's a great writer. None of them want to do this. They think this, they're like, oh, no, mom, you like when I was 10.
Mom, you're a creep.
Mom, when I was 10, you took me to a parking alley, there was a dead body, and we're like, nope, no, this is your thing. So like, but at the end of the day, the empathy is real. And then just being a mother, you just want to help. I mean, you just sincerely.
Absolutely.
And I just noticed like a kind of a shift, like after COVID as well. I don't know if you noticed this, Matt, like the mental health on just everyone, including, the judicial officials as well. It's like, wow, wow.
Yeah, I think there's a pause. Yeah, I've noticed it in federal court, where it used to be little King Georges running around, then it's getting a little softer. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess a pandemic will do that to you, like
And thank goodness with the pandemic, like everything came to a pause. I'm not 60 years old, so I was still able, I'm not at high risk, because a lot of people in my profession here in California, they seem that's kind of like the age bracket.
right.
So, high risk, not so I was in the jails. Like I was in the jails and I was literally these people's only human contact because they're on lockdown 23 hours a day
Yeah,
and so forth. And I just really noticed like, wow, I don't know what's going on here, but
yeah,
even just this sense of urgency with things too. And now that everything's reopened as well, it seems like we're always in trial. Like we're
yeah.
always, it's just go, 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 go.
It's all catch up now, So all right, I think this is a good spot to take a break. And when we come back, I really want to dig into the criminal defense in California, some of the law changes you had mentioned, and that whole humanizing all the parties involved and just taking a different perspective on things. I think this is a good spot to jump out. And when we jump back in, I want to drill down on that and just talk a little further on that. So everybody sit tight and we will be right back.
After 4 years of development, Scope Now is proud to announce the release of Grid. Grid combines OSINT with real-time physical data to achieve new levels of intelligence gathering. Grid supports over 50 data types and hundreds of thousands of sources. Upgrade your OSINT capabilities with Grid and elevate your intelligence team today at scopenow.com. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Are you drowning in fees with your current provider? IRB Search offers the highest quality data at the most competitive prices. Founded by investigators for investigators, IRB is tailored specifically toward helping you close your cases. We're currently offering PI Perspective listeners an exclusive 30-day free trial of our system. So simply go to irbsearch.com and apply using the promo code PIP30 to claim this promotion. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we are joined by Christina Duran from a Matrix Investigation in California. We're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about criminal defense. We're talking about basically the legal system in California and how to do defense work. And we're going to touch on some topics too I'm pretty excited to talk about. So Christina, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Okay. So when we were finishing up here before we took the break, we started getting into some of the changes and things that are happening in California with regards to defense. So tell me a little bit about that. What's going on out there?
So, of course, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know exact penal codes,
Right.
nor do I know
Legal
exact.
advice here.
Right here. So
Yeah.
here, so all of a sudden here in California, I think around 2016, we started implementing resentencing. So, California, we're famous for our 3-strike laws, right? Like 3-striker. We love to strike people out on a state level, like 21 years old, you're out. And so basically that means your livelihood's taken away from you. And it doesn't even necessarily matter in terms of the felony, right? Like the situation.
Right.
So what California has decided to do is revisit some of these resentencing. So we used to charge people. So what it's called is the wheel, meaning the driver, the bag, and we're going to use the robbery analogy. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of figured you were going there.
Right. The robbery analogy, right? So we got oh shoot, there we go. So we got so we've got the 3 people, right? So the shooter, the wheel in the back, right? So they used to all be charged the same. So if I'm like, hey, Matt, I got, we want to hang out today. And hey, Matt and John, let's hang out. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, let's stop at my bank. Right. And I just start shooting everybody up and holding everybody up. And like, you grab the bag and then,
Wasn't that a Tarantino movie? I feel like Quentin wrote something about
I
that.
think so, right? And
Yeah.
then the third dude does the driving, right? We're all done. We're all toast and we're all done. And there goes our life. So in
Right.
California, what's been decided is that it's kind of reevaluated in terms of like knowledge, conspiracy. And then, of course, it all relates on how they've done in terms of rehabilitation. That's
Right.
another show too, Matt. That is
Yeah.
another show, rehabilitation in the jail conform conditions and how that doesn't work. But anyway, because if you're 19 years old and you go away for the rest of your life, you're kind of used inside the prison system. And
Sure.
right.
Yeah, look
So,
at Charlie Manson, right? Didn't he go away at like 17, 18 years old? I remember reading about that when I was a kid.
and then like what do you do? Like you have to like you're in jail.
Yeah.
I forget what the name of the movie is. Anyway, back on topic to resentencing. So what the governor has decided is basically, jail's overcrowding. Should these people die in jail? Revisit their case, Christina. Take a look,
Right.
Christina. So they get an impressive attorney. Attorney gets about 300 of these. So my job is to gather all of their information, see how has life been since the age of like 18, 19, even sometimes earlier, because some of these people have been incarcerated and charged as adults when they were children, right? And that's another thing that has changed too. California has decided that prior to the age, I believe it's 27, it might be 26, don't quote me, that because your brain is not non-functioning, you do not have impulse decision making, that we can do what's called a Franklin. So basically, we can humanize you, we can mitigate you, we can show any sort of social trauma, basic trauma, geographical trauma, abuse, anything that would make you like anything that we can show that can put you in a decision where, or a
So
situation, make
do
a
you
bad
do
decision.
like a day in the life? Is it like, prior to jail, day in the life, like this is what their life was like before they came
I
out?
really,
Or something
I always
different?
call it like a beautiful Hallmark story with pictures and all that kind of stuff. So I tell their life, like exactly like a day in a life. Like I write their story.
Mhm.
I, definitely show generational trauma.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things too is that, we have learned, and this is where my daughter is just unbelievably phenomenal. And I thinking back when she's picking her career, I'm like, really not, you're so smart. You're not going to be a scientist. You're not going to, cure anything. But now I'm so grateful that she went into the social aspect background, because I use her
Trauma. The dead
to
body traumas. It's
trauma,
all your fault.
right? She's like, I need to fix this, mom. This is
Messed up.
really, you're over there eating a ham sandwich, mom. And I'm like, what? Like I'm like, what? A day in the life,
Right.
right? So yeah, so you basically do show you tell their story. You humanize them. What that Franklin report does, it goes to the parole board. So it's actually the board that will then read it when they are up for parole. So there's a lot of different things that we are doing out here in California. This is a really, really good time to do criminal defense if you are in California. And if you have the knack for it too, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out here that don't want to switch hats, right? They've been putting the people away. They've been protecting our community, and this is not their thing,
Yeah.
right? This is
Yeah.
not their thing.
Yeah, I had a situation in New York where we ended up not taking a case, but it was a very, very high profile case involved with some people that were accused of putting Mickeys in drinks, like basically drugging some women who may or may not have been escorts, and they may or may not have had a relationship with these women for about 2 or 3 years. So, you know, something happened, something very terrible happened, but there's more to the story on both sides, And I remember having a conversation with one of the people that I do work with, right? And we're saying, do we really want this case? Do we
Yeah.
really want to involve ourselves with this? Especially with me typically working on the victim side, do we want to do that? And it's like, okay, you know, in my heart of heart, really don't want it but I also
No.
know that there are two sides to every story, and sometimes you have to mitigate the damages and really understand, like, yeah, they're guilty, but of these one, two, three things, but they've got 10 charges. And maybe out of the 10 charges, they're actually responsible for like three of them. But then, like, because of the high profileness of it, sometimes people like, oh, I'm going to latch on to it. I've got a story too, right? I don't want to say me too, because that's a whole other show for another day. But
Oh,
it's
no,
like,
right.
yeah, you like, you get that, right? You get those people saying, this happened to me also with a particular person. And then as an investigator, you have to substantiate that. Like
You
I,
do.
I remember, like, I'm friendly with some people that worked on the Harvey Weinstein case, and he was explaining it to me, and then I reflected back on it, saying, okay, well, this makes sense. Everybody knows whatever that guy did and was not good, right? But there were a whole bunch of people who said that it happened to them also. When the investigator went in and really started to dig in, they found that it wasn't true.
Right.
And
Like with the 9/11 stuff, right? Like a lot of people
right,
said, they're like,
yeah,
oh,
it doesn't make him any less guilty of whatever he was guilty of. But there's other people that are looking to get, on the civil side, maybe get compensation or to add additional charges, additional counts, some more jail time or whatever. It's like, that's how you rationalize it. Like, I'm not saying he's innocent or guilty. I'm just trying to prove the facts of what happened, right? And I think you got to really take that approach. I would think, again, I don't really do that kind of work, but I would think that's kind of the attitude that you take with it, right?
yeah. And that makes you responsible as an investigator, because honestly, if you are not going to give it your all, if you're not going to give 200, then don't take it. Then don't take it. Because honestly, factually, a lot of times my clients are guilty. My
Yeah,
clients are guilty, but does the punishment fit the crime? Does
sure.
the punishment crime? And
Right.
that's what you're doing. You're doing like you're basically doing like Q&A, like for are the are they getting treated fairly? Are their rights being violated?
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. And at the end of the day, these are a lot of times, these their families are affected. They have children, they
Sure.
have they have livelihoods, and that's the thing too. And a lot of these people are rehabilitatable, and maybe a program, right? Maybe a diversion, like,
Yeah.
sometimes, especially with the mental health, we've got mental health, we have vet courts, we have drug courts, and California has realized that criminalizing even drug crimes, like, why
Yeah.
when we maybe fix the brain? Can we fix the brain?
All right. More show topics. Please stop.
Right.
Okay, well,
but, but yeah, but so that's the nice thing too, is if you can, that one of the things that I think is coolest is one of my clients was so terrified, and he was like, and again, dating myself, but of course we're
mm,
all PIs, figure out how old I am, but um I I remember just how scared he was and how terrified he was, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is like really nothing of a case. And we got him a diversion and it went away. And now he's one of the lawyers that I work for. And I'm like,
that's crazy, right?
I know, right?
I
And I'm
mean,
like,
stuff like that
there you go,
happens.
young man. Right. So
I think also, as like investigators, we have to check our biases too. Especially somebody who's a second career investigator, meaning they were in law enforcement for X amount of years, and now they're out there in the private sector. Retraining your brain to get over the biases of like 30 years of, like, I got to get that skill and put them away. Like, it's tough. It's tough to get past that. I think people struggle getting into this industry because of their biases, and it's even unintentional. It's just
yeah, but
nature
there's
of
so
the
much
business,
other
right?
and there's so much other things to do in the PI world. Like if you have and that's what I say as well, like, do surveillance, do bug sweeping, like
Right.
there's so many cool things you can do as a PI. Don't do criminal defense if it's not your thing, and if you have these biases, because that's the last thing that a human needs, is
Right.
somebody who does not want to help them. Don't help
Yeah.
them. Like, if you don't
Yeah.
want to help them, don't help them, because have options, and I get contacted all the time by pro per clients, meaning they're in pro se, they're representing themselves. I can't do it.
Yeah.
One, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Two, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to sit there and advocate, because you need an advocate.
Yeah.
Even the lawyers that I have been an investigator for, when they have charges, have lawyers.
Yeah.
So let's not play. Let's not play. Like, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I will just tell them, and they're like, oh, well, you should help. And I had a judge one time say, why are you conflicting? You're a criminal defense investigator. You should help him. And I said, I'm not helping him.
Yeah.
What am I helping him? Like helping him go to jail? Like
That's
I'm not, he
that's
can beat his case. He can
yeah.
beat his case if he has a lawyer. So I don't take those.
Yeah. I've done a couple episodes on post-conviction investigations, and it's fascinating.
They're
And to
awesome.
me, it's like that's something I would never touch again. I'm like, it's not my
I love
wheelhouse.
them. I love them
Um,
because one, sometimes they're cold cases. And then just looking at some of the injustice, because these are cases where, remember, like 30 years ago was the 90s. Was
mm,
the 90s. And you think about it, like the things that the court said, things that were said in the court.
yeah.
I'm wow. It's not the 20s. It's not the 30s.
So remember those stupid 19-year-olds you were talking about?
Hmm?
Yeah, that's me in the late 80s, early 90s, doing stuff like that. Thank God the technology wasn't there, because I definitely would have gotten myself in more trouble
That's what
for sure.
exactly. And that's the thing too. It's like revisiting. One of the cases that I have now, this guy was struck out when he was 21. And one of my jobs right now is to gather the information to show they kept his case in states because of the 3-strike rules, rather than charge him with a federal crime, which they charged his co-defendant with a federal crime. The co-defendant ended up doing like 19 months, going home and all kinds of stuff. My client's still in jail. He's in his 60s, like in his
Wow.
60s. And just working his case and just showing he wasn't given a fair trial. He
Yeah.
definitely wasn't the shooter. He's the driver, right?
Okay.
And
Not the
and
bad
I'm
guy.
right. He's exactly. I'm so excited for his win. And
Yeah.
then one of the things that I do, and I just do this, I'm not required to do this. It's just because of the connections and how blessed I've been with meeting people like yourself and other people. I do the whole like resources, finding them, assisted living homes and housing and jobs and that, like, just because the parole board's going to say like, where are you going to live? And what's your plan? And I'm like, oh, we got it. We got it. Like, I'm TI in here. You can have whatever you want, right? Like, you got it. So that is just, I can't even tell you, getting these people home, having them reunite with their families, and just seeing them actually having lives.
Yeah, that's
Nothing.
very cool. It's very cool.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Definitely it helps you sleep at night, right? With justifying what you're doing. So, like, what advice would you give to the investigator in California that says, "Wow, I'm fired up now listening to Christina talk about this stuff, and I'd like to do this kind of work. Like, where do I begin? How do I get involved with doing this?" What would you tell them?
Well, one of the things that I would tell them to do is really decide if it's what you want to do, because honestly, um, being a PI, I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be great, but how many hours a week do you work, I mean, honestly, like, you 24/7. I mean,
I'm
and
not
if
going to
there were
answer the
more hours, you'd
question.
work more. If you could work more, you would,
Yeah,
because there's just so much work out there. And then honestly, not biting off more than you can chew. I'm a
sure.
huge people pleaser. If I said to myself one time, well, if somebody asks me for help, it's because they need it and I can't say no. Say no. Say
Yeah,
no. Like, say I have too much. I can't.
that's
Um,
okay, dude.
these
Yeah,
these new PIs coming out with their boundaries. How cool is that? I'm like,
yeah,
wait, I mean, sometimes it's kind of like,
yeah.
they want to make more money than me. And I'm like, well, I want to make that kind of money too. But
Yeah, I mean, you got boundaries, but you're also be out of business too. So it's like pick your
exactly,
battles.
come on.
Uh,
Because I think our work ethic, my work, and that's the thing too. But
yeah,
honestly, not biting off more than you can chew, to like, not accepting every case that's thrown onto you, because you get in this whole like scarcity that there's not going to be enough, because honestly there's so many cases out there, there's so many different things to do. And then I always think too, well, shoot, if this doesn't work, I'll just go back to survey. I'll just go back to search and recovery. I haven't done search and recovery. Like, I've got the agents that do that for me out there and just kind of do the case management. Now I have a case
yeah.
manager that does for me.
Yeah, we didn't
So
even talk about that whole international, like the Dominican Republic side of what you do, which is again another show. And
another
maybe we'll
show.
come back in January and talk about it. January is always the month, the awareness month to talk about stuff like that.
I'll
So
make sure to be in the DR too. to see the like
There you go, right?
the headquarters on the beach.
Just work on your lighting so you can make sure that
I'm so sorry. It's so beautiful back there, and no one's gonna see it. No one's gonna see how
Okay.
gorgeous LA is.
It's okay.
Sorry.
They can look it up online. Google Images has some great photos
Google
of
it.
LA.
It's on my website.
Yeah, it's all good. So we're going to wind down here, and again, I appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff. And I know you got a busy schedule, and this was a bit in the making to get you on here. So I appreciate you coming on and just bringing light to this stuff, and just having an open discussion about these important social issues. It's not just work; these are social issues, really. And it's important to talk about things like this for sure.
Well, thanks for having me. I mean, you're iconic in our industry, and you're so
I think you're
inspirational.
talking to some guy behind me. Like, I don't
we should have a whole new show about even like that's a whole nother show. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I just think you in New York and just everything that you come up with, you just have this Midas touch, my friend. So I just keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah. No, that's all good. I know I surround myself with good people, and that's another piece of advice for somebody who's getting into this business, doing whatever. Build your network.
That's the if you want to ask me what mistake I made is I was a subcontractor for way too long because of the whole imposter thing, thinking that I was not good enough and thinking that I wasn't this like badass and that I couldn't. And then I thought I really had some really good people that I surrounded myself with that was like, look, you need to stop that, Christina. Like you need to stop that. And you call this person, get your S Corp, call this person, do this, just everything fell into place. Exactly. So that's a mistake that I made, was making other people rich.
Yeah. And I think, to tag on top of that is not raising your rates quick enough to, if you do get that imposter syndrome there too. If I'm going to raise it a little bit, they're never going to use me again. And, I'm going to lose that client. Like, don't be afraid to raise your rates, and don't apologize ever for what you charge ever.
No, my favorite thing was like, I don't want to do it. I'll charge you 10 grand. Okay. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't want to take your case 10 grand. Okay. Okay. So no, but I think you're great. Thank you so much for having me. I can't even tell you what a blessing it's been on your show.
Oh, it's feelings mutual. So Christina's contact info is going to be in the show notes. So if you do have any questions about, getting into this line of work and doing things, obviously reach out to her and fire away. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into the program and checking this out. And we'll have a new show for you guys right around the corner. So thanks for tuning in. Take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for checking out the show. We hope you found the information helpful. Christina's a great guest. We want to thank Campbell Insurance Group for sponsoring our podcast. Remember to tell them you listen to save $50 when you apply for insurance. Additional thanks to TrackOps, Scope Now, IRB, and PI Institute for Education for sponsoring our show. Don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspectives 50 to save $50 when you join. Also follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn. If you have a question or a comment about the show, you can email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. And of course, you can find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, social media. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next week with a brand new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.